All right, so additional services in AWS security. Go ahead and watch that video. And once you're ready, let's go ahead and discuss just a few, right? AWS has a giant catalog of services. We're just going to discuss these four key ones in addition to all the ones we discussed in this lesson. So we have key management service, web application firewall, WAF, as we discussed in the previous slides, Amazon Inspector, and guard duty. So you might have noticed, right, when we created, for example, an EC2 instance, we needed a key, create a key to access that instance. So there's actually a service that helps you manage all of those keys. And those keys are used to encrypt data across all AWS services. So it enables you to perform encryption operations through the use of cryptographic keys. So cryptographic key is a random strings of digits used for locking, encrypting, and unlocking or decrypting data. So we're not going to get into the details of encryption and cryptography. It's an entire field of computer science, and it's one that has helped the internet be as secure as it is today. Obviously, right, attackers are always finding tricks, right, to circumvent these measures. But essentially, what cryptography does is as data is passing through, if you encrypt it, you're passing it through a set of algorithms, a set of like random calculations, so to speak, and you're kind of jumbling up the data. So, say you were transmitting your credit card number, right? That's not something you want attackers to be able to see. So, as it's being transmitted across servers, maybe the attackers do get access, right? They do intercept that data. But with cryptography and encryption, that data is going to be gibberish, right? They're not going to actually see your actual credit card information. It's going to be jumbled up by this cryptographic key. So the key is essentially a set of instructions on how they jumbled it up. So if you do want to decrypt it on the other side, the receiving server, right, handling the response, will be able to unjumble, right, scramble that information so they can see, oh, this is the actual credit card number that I need to charge. All right, so let's go ahead and continue. So with KMS or Key Management Service, you can control the use of keys across a wide range of services and in your applications. So like I said, EC2 instance, right? That's one place where we use keys. So you choose the specific levels of access control that you need for your keys. So for example, you can specify which IAM users and roles are even able to manage keys. So definitely maybe your IT manager, right? As they handle new users, they should have privileges for generating keys. But if you're a developer or maybe a testing engineer, right, you shouldn't be able to manage the keys yourself, right? You should have to go to the IT manager first. So alternatively, you can also temporarily disable keys so that they're no longer in use by anyone. Your keys never leave AWS KMS and you're always in control of them. So keys help to encrypt data while in storage. So that's S3 databases. They also help to encrypt data while they're being transmitted, right? Maybe between EC2 instances or between your instance and your customers. So encryption in transit, that refers to the securing of data that's being transmitted. So it's being passed along, right, in a network. And then encryption at rest is data that's actually just in storage, right, sitting in a S3 bucket, for example. If we bring it back to the coffee shop has many items, important, machinery, has the food, right, the money as well. So you can think of these items as data, right, in terms of encryption. So the owners want to ensure that all of these items are secure, whether they're sitting in storage, that'd be your at-rest data, or they're being transmitted between the shop and other locations, right? Maybe between shops or between a distributor. That'd be your in-transit data. So encryption, whether it's in rest or at rest or in transit, it's going to have that protection of encryption. All right, so what is WAF? So this is another service. We discussed that this one can be integrated into your AWS Shield, right? Your DDoS protection. So this is a web application firewall that helps protect web apps from common web exploits that can affect security, availability, and performance. So you can monitor network requests that come into your web applications. So firewall is kind of what it sounds like, right? It's a barrier that you can set up on your network to make sure that only certain requests make it through, right? If you don't have a firewall, then essentially you don't have any boundaries, right, of who's coming in and out of that network. So it works together with CloudFront. Also the application load balancer, right? That's the one that that entryway for all the traffic into an application, such as an EC2 instance, when running on an EC2 instance, I should say. So it's similar to access control lists in the sense that WAF uses web access control lists. So ACLs are for networks. Web access control lists are for specific resources, such as like a website. So if you want to block access to a particular website, you can use web access control lists. If you want to block it to an entire network, which might have multiple instances of EC2, for example, running, then you'd use your access control list. So they work similar, just different levels. This is network level. This is resource level. So let's look at our AWS WAF example. Let me go ahead and delete that extra slide. There we go. So suppose your app has been receiving malicious network requests from several IP addresses. You want to prevent these requests from continuing to access your app, but you also want to ensure that legitimate users can still access it. Kind of similar to the DDoS situation, right? But this is maybe at a smaller scale. You can configure the web ACL to allow requests except from those IP addresses that you have specified. So once you've identified those malicious ones, you can use these control lists to eliminate, right, those requests. When a request comes into AWS WAF, it checks against the list of rules I have configured in the web ACL. So web ACL, again, it's for a particular resource, for example, your website or your app. If a request does not come from one of the blocked IP addresses, it's going to let it right through. It's going to pass that firewall. However, if a request comes from one of the blocked IP addresses, that's where your firewall kicks in. You're not on the list, so AWS WAF will deny access. Again, similar to a network ACL, but again, it's at a different level, right? So network ACLs or NACLs operate at the subnet level. Remember, that was a partition, right, of your VPC, while web ACLs try to focus on specific web traffic protection, so to a particular domain name, right, or a particular service that you're running. So both are used to filter traffic and control access, but again, network ACLs, it's network level. Web ACLs is resource level, such as an app or website. Yeah, do very similar things. And check it out right here, right? This is just WAF saying, hey, you're from one of those blocked IP addresses, so I'm not going to let you in to this resource. All right, so Amazon Inspector. So this is going to be another service we're going to take a quick look at. So it's an automated security assessment service to help identify vulnerabilities and improve the security of apps running on AWS. Things are always changing, right? OSs update, new vulnerabilities occur. You're updating your app with new code, right? Amazon Inspector is going to help you identify these vulnerabilities as they pop up. So it checks apps for security vulnerabilities and deviations from best practices, such as open access to EC2 instance or installing vulnerable software versions. I can tell you this was extremely, extremely important and highly enforced in the organization I worked for because we were dealing with government secrets. If, for example, I introduce a new line of code and I didn't follow a particular best practice, it would be flagged by these security assessments, and I would have to go in and say, hey, either this is a false positive or, the assessment got it right and I need to go in and fix it. So it provides you a list with security findings. List prioritizes by severity level. So the most dangerous vulnerabilities will be at the top. So it'll have a detailed description of each security issue, and it'll give you recommendations for how to fix them, which is extremely useful. Again, under the shared responsibility model, AWS does not guarantee that following those recommendations that it provides you will resolve every single security issue, and these assessments won't catch everything. So it is still on you, right, to make sure that you are protecting your services. AWS provides the hardware, the infrastructure, and make sure that it's up and running and following, right, basic encryption and all that stuff. But as far as like access rules, specific policies, that's still up to you. And then if there are security vulnerabilities, right, and maybe the tools that you're using to build your app or website, again, that's on you to fix. So part of that shared responsibility. So there's another service that helps you keep your resources protected, and that's Guard Duty, Amazon Guard Duty. So it's a threat detection service that continuously monitors malicious or unauthorized activity in your AWS environment. It provides intelligent threat detection to your AWS infrastructure and resources. So once you enable Guard Duty for your account, it's going to start monitoring your network and account activity. It's going to make sure that there's no threats, right? Malicious requests, etc. And it's going to provide you detailed findings that you can review in the AWS Management Console. So it's going to analyze data from all kinds of sources, including your VPCs, right? It'll have logs for your domain names, right? Which domains we're hitting your services, right? And et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So Amazon Guard Duty, you enable it, it's going to start doing its own analysis. If it does detect a threat, it'll report those findings, and you can take action directly from the console. So that's it for this week. Those are some of the additional services, right? We just kind of give them a shout out. No need to become an expert on them for this class. But just know Amazon has a whole slew, right? A whole catalog of services to help you not only achieve your computing goals, but also make sure you're doing them in a safe way and that you're following the rules and regulations that your organization needs to follow.